2 inches. What do you want with him? Elder Yi took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He stared at Xiao Yan and asked, Sins. There is actually a student who is so bold as to attack an elder in public and wreak havoc in the punishment department. What are the rules of the academy? Before Xiao Yan could speak, an elder who was older than him shouted furiously, An elder of the punishment department, quickly capture this kid and hand him over to Elder Su for punishment. Elder Shu, you must not. Elder Yi's heart skipped a beat when he heard this, and he hurriedly spoke out to stop him. Boom! Elder Shu was a dignified figure in the punishment department. After his voice faded, although most of the elders were hesitating, there were still a few elders who couldn't help but attack. They attacked Xiao Yan from all directions. In an instant, rainbow lights appeared in all directions in the hall, and a frightening aura spread out wildly, causing all the guards outside the hall to be stunned. None of them dared to stop him. Let's see who dares to stop me. At this moment, the hostility in Xiao Yan's heart had finally erupted. In the past, he had been enduring patiently in the academy and had never had any direct confrontation with anyone. But now, after being repeatedly attacked by these elders, even a clay figurine would get angry, let alone Xiao Yan. Boom! The blue flame ruler was held in his hand. The ruler's shadow moved continuously, scattering the origin cheese that flew over. Xiao Yan faced the few elders that were attacking him from all directions. Not only did he not feel any fear in his heart, but he was also filled with endless excitement. Crazy! This is simply crazy! Elder Yi and the rest of the elders looked at the imminent war with pale faces. They gritted their teeth and suddenly shouted at the few people behind them. Wai Tong went there and called him over. A relatively young elder hurriedly responded. Wai Tong was entrusted by Elder Guo Yan to go to the outer court. I will call him over immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, this elder had already rushed out of the hall in a hurry. Under the shocked expressions of the students, he soared into the sky and rushed towards the direction of the outer court. I'll go look for Elder Su. Seeing that the battle between Xiao Yan and the few elders could no longer be stopped, Elder Yi gritted his teeth and rushed out of the hall once again. His cold gaze swept across the hundreds of students outside as he furiously shouted, All of you, get out of here. After saying that, Elder Yi's expression turned ugly, and he rushed towards the direction of the technique impartation square. He really couldn't understand what kind of crazy things Xiao Yan had done to cause havoc in the punishment department. In just a short period of time, Elder Yi arrived at the technique impartation square and barged into the main hall where Su Ziyang was. At this moment, Su Ziyang, Elder Xiao, and Elder Wu were discussing the various matters that would happen 3 days later. What? Xiao Yan has caused a huge disturbance in the punishment department? Upon hearing Elder Yi's urgent words, Su Ziyang furrowed his brows and didn't say anything. Elder Wu turned pale with fright. He stood up from his seat and mumbled, How is this possible? Xiao Yan had always been a steady man. How could he do such a crazy thing? Also, why did he look for Wai Tong? Although Elder Xiao was shocked, he quickly recovered his senses. He glanced at Su Ziyang indifferently and said, Elder Su, Xiao Yan is now a student of your realm and valley. You have the final say in how you want to punish him. It's quite interesting to cause havoc in the punishment department. Su Ziyang smiled and said casually when he heard this. Interesting? Elder Yi was stunned. He looked at Su Ziyang in disbelief. In his memory, Su Ziyang's character was incomparably cold. He was extremely protective of the academy's interests. Anyone who dared to offend the academy would receive endless revenge from the former. Why did his temperament change this time? There's no rush. We can take a look at the strength of those elders. If a few elders joined hands and can't even deal with a single student, the arrogance in their hearts will also be greatly reduced. The corner of Su Ziyang's mouth rose, and then he said with a cold gaze. Elder Yi, go and find Wai Tong and ask him what that guy has done. Yes. Elder Yi's heart trembled. Without saying another word, he left the hall. Elder Su, what are you thinking? The punishment department is an important organization that protects the safety of the academy. No matter what Xiao Yan does, if the other academies find out about this, how will they discuss the Yunluo Academy? Although he valued Xiao Yan very much, Elder Wu still shook his head in disbelief and said with a heavy heart, Elder Wu, do you know what I have seen the most in Star Moon Island? What? Su Ziyang suddenly changed the topic. Elder Wu was stunned and said subconsciously, Our academy lacks students who dare to resist. The resistance here is not against the enemy, but against the authority around us. Su Ziyang's expression was solemn. The figures of Kang Feng, Zhou Buyi, and the others appeared in his mind. Even if it was Mu Yuyong and Lin Dao in the past, when they received unreasonable requests from the elders, although they were unwilling, they would still carry it out. This is one of the reasons why the Yunluo Academy is weaker than the other academies. But, if the students don't listen to orders, wouldn't it be chaotic? Elder Wu stroked his beard and said with some doubt. Wrong. Towards those powerful students, my experience in battle is far more flexible than the elders' orders. As he spoke, Su Ziyang once again thought of Sang Shoshan. When the latter faced Kang Feng's attack, he did not hesitate to cripple himself in order to escape from the latter's vicious attack. This method deeply shocked him. Furthermore, it's time to reorganize the punishment department. Elder Wu, the position of elder with real power isn't very satisfactory. Su Ziyang looked at Elder Wu and said with a cold expression. Everything. I'll listen to Elder Su's orders. Elder Wu shook his head and sighed. Obviously, he tacitly agreed with Su Ziyang's words. Elder Xiao sat by the side and did not speak since the beginning. After hearing Su Ziyang's words, he could not help but nod his head. The academy did not nurture students who listened to the instructions of the elders. If they lost the courage and soul in their hearts because of this kind of student would definitely not be able to achieve great things. After all, this great world was not a peaceful academy. Xiao Yan, hurry up and surrender. Be obedient and accept your punishment. The 5 of them attacked at the same time. 5 powerful and majestic origin chi pillars surged out explosively, forcing Xiao Yan to retreat. Elder Shu, who was the first to speak, berated coldly. Crack! Xiao Yan's expression was cold. He didn't say anything. He dodged the attack of the 5 origin chi pillars. His body spun in the air, and his feet stepped on a pillar. The huge force caused a clear crack to appear on the pillar. With the help of this force, Xiao Yan once again rushed towards the 5 of them like a cannonball. The origin chi in his body whistled, and in an instant, it transformed into a huge white tiger. The white tiger roared furiously, and its sharp claws ripped apart the thick origin chi, and it rushed towards the 5 elders. Stubborn fool! Elder Shu's beard was trembling with anger. He shouted coldly, Elders, use the great defensive formation. As he spoke, a token appeared in his hand. His fingertip was like a sword as it swiftly shot a few strands of pure origin chi into the token. In an instant, a scarlet light surged on the token. A scarlet light source rushed out from within and connected with the scarlet light source that the other 4 elders shot out from the token. Instantly, thousands of red light pillars seemed to be hanging down from the top of the hall. It crashed down like a cage. Xiao Yan was completely trapped inside. His movement was blocked by the red light cage. Xiao Yan looked around with a gloomy expression, and the anger in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. Xiao Yan, you were in the wrong. Snorting, Elder Shu and the other 4 elders stopped. The former looked at Xiao Yan and said in a clear voice. Although the defensive formation deployed by the 5 of them was weak, if it was trapped, even a true Emperor cultivation warrior wouldn't be able to come out. Know your mistake? Ha 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 ha. Xiao Yan let out a dark and cold smile. After which, he placed his hands together. 2 flames suddenly rose from his palm. Everyone instantly felt a frightening strength slowly spreading from the former's palm. You guys are using the great protective formation. I don't mind turning this great hall of yours into ashes. 2 inches, it's the monarch flame. The few elders naturally knew that Xiao Yan had the monarch flame in his possession, and his ability to control the monarch flame was at the peak of perfection. Back when he was at the monarch spirit, he was able to match Zhu Tianwo with the strength of an emperor. Now, Xiao Yan's strength had already reached the monarch emperor, which was almost the same as theirs. When he used the monarch flame again, its power would naturally be much stronger. How dare you speak such outrageous words? Damn it! Hearing Xiao Yan's furious roar, Elder Shu also roared furiously. His hair and beard were stretched taut, and the origin chi in his body was violently surging. He and the other 4 elders were constantly strengthening the power of the formation, like a ferocious beast that was ready to devour a human, and no longer had the same calm look as before. Sizzle sizzle! Xiao Yan's eyes were scarlet red. He clenched his steel teeth tightly and concentrated his soul. In a moment, an exquisite fire lotus the size of a palm had already appeared between his palms. The fire lotus appeared to be golden and gold in color. It appeared as though it was carved from jade. It slowly rotated between his palms, incinerating the surrounding space. Hiss! Many of the elders present inhaled a breath of cold air. Their eyes were stunned as they looked at Xiao Yan, who was trapped by the formation a short distance away. The seemingly gentle and beautiful fire lotus in the latter's hand was actually emitting a destructive aura that caused everyone to tremble in fear. Woo! They could feel the boundless pressure that was being transmitted from the formation. Xiao Yan's legs went limp and he almost fell to the ground. Under the deliberate control of the 5 elders, the weakened formation was weakening. All of the attacks were directed at Xiao Yan. At every moment, the attacks Xiao Yan received were no less than the full-force attacks of an ordinary monarch emperor. Forcibly holding back the feeling of weakness coming from his body, Xiao Yan's expression was cold. He lifted the fire lotus with one hand and looked at the people in the distance with a cold gaze. The fire lotus rotated gently in his palm, shattering the surrounding space layer by layer. Swoosh! Xiao Yan curled his 5 fingers. Just as he was about to pull the fire lotus out, the space in the middle of everyone suddenly twisted. In the next moment, a ray of light shot out from the space. In the light, an old man stood with his hands behind his back with a kind look on his face. Senior Qi. With a glance, he recognized the old man who had suddenly appeared. Everyone, including Elder Shu, had shocked expressions on their faces. They hurriedly put away all their techniques and bowed to the old man. Crack! The old man who had appeared was Qi Yun, who was one of the Qi Bai elders. The moment the latter appeared, he immediately looked at Xiao Yan, who was trapped in the formation, and saw the fire lotus that was about to touch the formation. He waved his sleeve abruptly. A faintly discernible gale blew past and instantly shattered the formation. At the same time, a millstone-sized space black hole quietly appeared in front of the fire lotus. It swallowed it. Qi Yun let out a sigh of relief when he saw the space black hole disappear. Immediately, he looked at Xiao Yan and said in an icy cold voice, Xiao Yan, why did you attack an elder and wreak havoc in the punishment department? Elder Qi. Xiao Yan frowned when he saw that the fire lotus had been easily devoured by Qi Yun. His furious mind gradually calmed down. He said in a deep voice, I have come this time to look for Wai Tong. These elders have stopped me time and time again. I can only attack them. Pausing for a moment, Xiao Yan looked at Qi Yun with a fierce gaze and said, Elder Qi is also here to stop me? If that's the case, even if I have to risk my life, I will still kill Wai Tong. His voice was filled with determination and killing intent, causing Qi Yun's brows to tremble slightly. As expected of a fighting monarch of lower realm who had broken through to the next realm. In terms of aura alone, it had far exceeded that of the people of the great world. Senior Qi, Xiao Yan didn't respect the teachings of the sect and severely injured Elder Yang Lin. Although he was an elite disciple of the realm and valley, he couldn't just let such a maniac go. Otherwise, where are the rules of the Yunluo? Elder Shu valued the rules of the punishment department the most. Immediately, he said bitterly. Sigh. Qi Yun shook his head. In his heart, he still attached great importance to Xiao Yan, especially this time in the 4 academies competition. Although he didn't know the details, he could guess that with Xiao Yan's character, he had made a great contribution to the Yunluo Academy. Wai Tong is an elder of the punishment department, how could he? A student is qualified to judge. Despite this, Qi Yun still sighed and said, even if he has made a mistake, he must be dealt with after the elders have discussed it. Xiao Yan sneered when he heard this. Just as he was about to speak, a few rays of light suddenly rushed over from outside the hall. They were Su Ziyang, Elder Xiao, Elder Wu, and the 2 elders in Wai Tong who had just left. Elder Qi, you have all come out. The few of them entered the hall and were startled when they saw Qi Yun standing in front of them. Elder Xiao was the first to speak respectfully. We have to come out. Otherwise, this guy will tear down the punishment department. Qi Yun smiled bitterly and pointed at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, why are you looking for Wai Tong? Su Ziyang looked at Xiao Yan with a glimmer in his eyes. Instead of the anger that the others had expected, he said faintly. Seeing Wai Tong standing beside Su Ziyang and recalling Xuan Er's pale face, Xiao Yan's killing intent soared. He waved his arm and the crimson gold flame condensed into a huge hand that was about to grab Wai Tong. Xiao Yan! With an angry shout, Su Ziyang's eyes remained calm. He didn't make any movements, but he awakened Xiao Yan, who was on the brink of fury. He took a deep breath, and the flames on his arm dissipated. He forced himself to calm down. Xiao Yan's eyes turned cold as he looked at Wei Tong and said with a cold smile on his face. My two wives had asked Elder Wei about the details of Gu Mushan before they went out to train. They were surrounded by the people of Gu Mushan the moment they arrived at Gu Mushan. What is the reason for this? Hearing this, Wei Tong's face suddenly turned pale. Sensing the gazes of the crowd, he hurriedly said, Xiao Yan. Don't frame me. I have been in Yunluo Academy for so many years. Who doesn't know what kind of person I, Wei Tong, am? Capital of chaos is so chaotic. All of these dark souls were restless, and all of them were acting as if they were facing a great enemy. They are thinking about how to increase their strength. The resources in the ancient wood mountain are abundant. The ancient wood gang had given birth to 3 feet long ago. When your wife went out, when the Gu clan joined forces with the other members of the Gu clan to attack Gu Mu Mountain, they met your two wives. It was purely a coincidence. As he spoke, Wei Tong gritted his teeth, and his brows were filled with grievance. The words he said made everyone believe him without a doubt. Ha ha ha, what Elder Wei said. Does this mean that it was also a coincidence that I was surrounded by the people of Silver Moon Group during the graduation exam? Seeing that all the elders were silent and Wei Tong was secretly delighted, a clear voice suddenly sounded from outside the hall. Everyone looked over and saw Mu Yuyang, who was dressed in white clothes and had a graceful bearing as he walked in. He looked at Wei Tong with a smile on his handsome face. What? The Silver Moon Group actually knew about your whereabouts during the graduation exam? Su Ziyang's voice turned cold when he heard this. Actually, there's nothing that can't be fought. It's just that I almost died in that group of people's hands. Speaking of which, I still have to thank Elder Wei. Mu Yuyang didn't even look at the other elders. He walked forward and bowed to Qi Yun. After that, he looked at Wei Tong and said with a smile. However, there was an endless coldness in his eyes. Only the few elders in charge of Realm and Valley and I know about Mu Yuyang's graduation exam. The one who gave Mu Yuyang the exam questions is you, Wei Tong. Su Ziyang narrowed his eyes and looked at Wei Tong. He said word by word. There were a total of 8 elders who helped him manage Realm and Valley. This Wei Tong was one of them. He was also very experienced. Back then, it was Wei Tong who set the questions first. Mu Yuyang would only complete the questions after he discussed with the 8 elders. Elder Su. Wei Tong's expression changed instantly. He had never thought that Mu Yuyang would come at this time and bring up this matter that he had almost forgotten about. All the elders should know the rules of the academy. They should also know my temper. Su Ziyang's face was expressionless. His gaze swept across everyone present. When the elders saw his gaze, their hearts trembled, and they couldn't help but lower their heads. Xiao Yan, you have caused havoc in the punishment department, and even alerted Elder Qi. Your crime is unforgivable. However, as a student, you were able to withstand the attack of 5 elders. This proves that the Yunluo Academy's teachings are extraordinary. Your contributions are equal to mine, and I will spare your life. Pausing for a moment, ignoring the shocked gazes of the crowd, Su Ziyang suddenly stretched out his hand and lifted Wei Tong into the air, then threw him in front of Xiao Yan. A cold voice resounded in everyone's ears. Wei Tong has harmed the interests of the academy. He has colluded with outsiders. Anyone can kill him. Tu Dong. Wei Tong was violently thrown to the ground by Su Ziyang, and he almost smashed the black brick into pieces. The sound was so loud that it caused the hearts of all the elders to tremble, but none of them dared to say a word. Regarding Su Ziyang's character, they, who had been elders for decades, knew it better than anyone else. Elder Su. Wei Tong was terrified. He hurriedly got up and was about to speak when Xiao Yan mercilessly kicked him, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His expression was dispirited. When Su Ziyang casually tossed him earlier, he had directly destroyed the life force in his body. In front of Xiao Yan, he did not even have the strength to fight back. Elder Su, even if Wei Tong deserves to die 10,000 times over, we can't let a student kill him. After considering for a moment, Elder Shu looked at Su Ziyang with sweat all over his face and spoke in a trembling voice. No, I have already told them that they have passed the graduation test. If he is willing, he can become an elder at any time. Su Ziyang looked coldly at Elder Shu. He suppressed the anger in his heart and walked out of the hall without looking at Wai Tong. Just as he was about to walk out of the hall, he suddenly paused and said, "Xiao Yan, later in the Technique Impartation Hall, there seems to be some news from the Xiao clan. I need you to return." Xiao clan? Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned for a moment. Why was the Xiao clan looking for him? Even though he was puzzled, Xiao Yan still nodded his head and replied softly. Xiao Yan, give me some face. Don't let the punishment department not be able to raise their heads in front of the students in the future. You must have had a good time beating them up. Where will the prestige of these elders be in the future? With a bitter smile, Qi Yun slowly stepped forward. Following the opening of a spatial crack, his body was instantly engulfed. His cold eyes swept across Elder Shu and the others. When he saw the nervous expression on the latter's face, Xiao Yan sneered and nodded at Mu Yuyang. He didn't express his gratitude. "I will leave tomorrow. At that time, you will have to rely on yourself to support the Yun Luo's ranking." Mu Yuyang let out a loud laugh and didn't say anything else. With a wave of his white robe, he flew away, not even giving the other elders a glance. Creak. As the door of the Technique Impartation Hall opened, Xiao Yan silently walked in. Within the hall, Su Ziyang was the only one there. He leaned back in his chair with his eyes closed, as if he was thinking about something. "You're here." Su Ziyang opened his eyes when he heard the voice. He took a deep look at Xiao Yan. The latter's expression was calm. The anger in his eyes had been alleviated by a lot. Clearly, Wai Tong had been killed by him. With a flick of his wrist, Su Ziyang took out a jade slip and threw it to Xiao Yan. "This is a message from Xiao clan a few days ago. I only received it a few days ago." Xiao Yan caught the jade slip. Although his eyes were filled with doubt, his expression was still calm. He glanced at Su Ziyang and gently placed the jade slip on his forehead. Soul energy surged out from between his brows and easily entered the jade slip. "There is a fighting monarch in Fighting Qi continent that has broken through. Return to Xiao clan at once." The 13 words were like the sound of an ancient spirit. It rumbled in Xiao Yan's mind, causing his facial expression to change. Then, an endless amount of wild joy surged up his face. For a moment, his body was trembling slightly. Su Ziyang sat up straight and looked at the excited Xiao Yan. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Yan couldn't help but speak. "Elder Su, I want to return to Xiao clan immediately. Shu and and Kai Lin also want to go together." Su Ziyang was not surprised by Xiao Yan's request. He thought for a while and said, "Xiao Shuan and Kai Lin should still be in the Emperor realm. Isn't it a little too much time to bring them along?" Frowning, the burning sensation in Xiao Yan's heart slowly calmed down. He also began to consider this problem. Previously, he was thinking about advancing into the fighting monarch in the lower realm. If Xiao was here, Kai Lin would be able to see her. But it was really as Su Ziyang said, with the two girls' looks, how could they leave the capital of chaos? It was a big problem. The capital of chaos is no longer the same as before. For some reason, the people of the Dark Abyss have started to gather many experts to disturb the capital of chaos. With the looks of your two wives, I'm afraid that they will bring you endless troubles. Su Ziyang stood up and shook his head with a smile. "How about this, you go back alone. As for Xiao Shuan and Kai Lin, I can arrange for them to temporarily stay in your heavenly peak in realm in valley and take care of Wu Xiaoqi." Xiao Yan's brows twitched. In the end, he still nodded in agreement. With the current strength of these two girls, it was indeed somewhat inconvenient for them to follow him. Without saying anything else, Xiao Yan immediately rushed out of the main hall and rushed towards the heavenly peak where the two girls were. When he thought that he would meet Xiao and more of his old friends, the excitement in his heart couldn't be replaced. What? There's a fighting monarch that has broken through in the Fighting Qi continent? On the heavenly peak, when Kai Lin heard Xiao Yan's words, her pretty and cold face finally changed. She grabbed Xiao Yan's arm and anxiously said, "Where is Xiao?" She must have come, right? Xiao Yan nodded his head. His heart was also filled with hope. Xiao's talent was obvious to all. When they left the Fighting Qi continent, she had already reached the peak of the Do Shen class. Over the years, there was a high chance that she would advance to the Fighting Monarch. Moreover, 9 Nether Monarchs bug had already been killed in the Fighting Monarch. Xiao should be able to reach this place safely. He told the two girls his thoughts. Although he was unhappy that he could not personally go to the Xiao clan, Xiao Yan promised that if Xiao came, he would bring her to the academy and reluctantly agree to stay with Xuan in the realm in Valley for the time being. Mr. Xiao Yan, you must bring Xiao here. Xuan blinked her eyes and her gentle gaze was filled with gentleness. She also liked Xiao very much and treated her like her own daughter. You guys go and tell father about it. I will leave now. There was no time to rest. Facing such news, no matter how calm Xiao Yan was, he could not help but feel excited. He gave a few instructions to the two girls and then soared into the sky and rushed towards the direction of the outer court. Xiao, it has been so many years since we last met. You should be even more beautiful now. Xuan looked at Xiao Yan's back as he left and said with a sweet smile. However, there was some sadness in her tone. You also miss Xiao Lin, right? As a mother, Kai Lin could naturally hear the trace of loneliness in Xuan words and said softly. Xuan lightly nodded her head and her beautiful eyes were also filled with some moisture at this moment. It's alright, with Lin's talent, he will definitely be able to advance to the fighting monarch. Extending her hand and grabbing Xuan's slightly icy cold hands, Kai Lin softly said. Because of her longing, a trace of tears also surged into her charming eyes. Swoosh! A scarlet-red light swiftly streaked across the sky above the capital of chaos, passing through layers of mountain ranges. After passing through Xiao Yan's unceasing journey, just a day later, Xiao Yan came out from the central region of the capital of chaos and entered the grasslands in the heartland. After leaving this place and passing by a transportation array, he arrived at the city adjacent to capital of chaos, Cloudboat City, which belonged to the Myriad Spirit Palace. After passing through the Myriad Spirit Prefecture, he would arrive at the Star-Severing Mountain Range. As for the Xiao clan, according to the instructions on the Jade Slip, after passing through the 3 prefectures in the Star-Severing Mountain Range, they would arrive at the Xiao city of the Xiao clan. 2. The vast desert, the yellow sand into the sky, looking up, this boundless desert, under the influence of the setting sun, seemed to be dyed in a layer of blood, strange mountains and strange stones, towering and towering. This place was the Star-Severing Mountain Range, which was renowned throughout the entire star field. Every day, lofty mountains and lofty peaks crawled on the ground like giant dragons, stretching for tens of thousands of miles. No one knew where they led to. Swoosh! In the distant horizon, a ray of light suddenly appeared. It did not take long for it to swiftly flash over. As it passed by this area, it was precisely Xiao Yan. With Xiao Yan's experience, he naturally knew how to use the least amount of origin cheese to increase his speed to the maximum. Even so, after dozens of days of non-stop traveling, Xiao Yan still felt a wave of tiredness that came from the bottom of his heart. That is, Profound Yin Castle? Seeing a fortress below, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. He instantly recognized it. It was in Profound Yin Castle. He had met Jade Fairy and experienced all kinds of things. He had also obtained the Yin Scrolls and secret arts of the latter, although these secret arts had been used up until now. He had only mastered a little of them, but it did not hinder their power. It could be said that Xiao Yan had mastered the secret arts and secret arts. Hong Long, Xiao Yan slightly nodded his head when he saw the Profound Yin Castle. He immediately thought of many things. Yin Kang, Yin Juxuan, and the others from the Profound Yin sect were still fresh in his mind. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan flew across the sky above the Profound Yin Castle. He didn't want to complicate the matter, he just wanted to reach the Xiao clan as soon as possible. Along the way, numerous places that he had been to appeared one after another. Xiao Yan's heart was also filled with excitement. When he went there, his strength was only at the monarch spirit, but now, in just 2 to 3 years, he had already reached the monarch emperor. In this vast great world, he now had the ability to protect himself. Around 2 days later, the origin chi in Xiao Yan's body had finally been exhausted. He saw a fortress in the distance. It was like an oasis in a desert, extremely eye-catching. Black Sand Castle. After landing in the distance, Xiao Yan looked at the huge fortress that was crawling like a giant beast in the distance. A trace of unusual splendor flashed across his eyes. The first fortress he entered after being teleported to the Star-Severing Mountain Range was precisely the Black Sand Castle. Almost all the experts in the Black Sand Castle had fallen in the tomb of that Emperor cultivation expert. No one knew what kind of chaos would befall the Black Sand Castle. While thinking, Xiao Yan strode towards the front of the Black Sand Castle. There was still a tall arrow platform. On top of each platform stood a few strong men who were emitting a ferocious aura. Under the platform stood a few ferocious-looking men. There were also a few soldiers patrolling. Each of them was wearing tattered armor as they lazily leaned against the archery platform. Seeing Xiao Yan walk over, a tall and thin man laughed lightly. He tidied up the tattered armor on his body and swaggered forward. He extended his hand to block Xiao Yan's footsteps. He looked at the latter's ordinary clothes and said in a rough voice, "Where did you come from?" He looked at the tall and thin man with a somewhat ridiculous expression. There were several scars on the man's face. He was filled with a ferocious aura. Capital of chaos. Xiao Yan was too lazy to explain anything to this kind of person. He said lightly and then walked into the Black Sand Castle in a flash. Capital of chaos? Star-severing mountain range? There's such a place? Kid, you're quite a bully. Seeing this, the other soldiers stepped forward and blocked Xiao Yan's path. One of the men said in a strange tone, "Boom." Before his voice could fade, Xiao Yan had already thrown out a punch with an expressionless face. The former did not even have the strength to retaliate as he was directly sent flying. He landed heavily on the arrow platform in the distance and spat out a large mouthful of blood as he fainted. Everyone was stunned when they saw Xiao Yan's sudden lightning strike. After all, they were all people who had been fighting in the midst of a bloody storm. They all had extraordinary eyesight and could tell Xiao Yan's strength. It was wise that no one would come forward to seek death. Hey! Seeing that everyone was stunned, Xiao Yan smiled and walked into the castle. Only someone who was more ruthless than them would be able to shock them. Black Sand Castle was the only gathering point within a 100-mile radius. Although it was not as bustling as an ordinary city, it was still quite lively. A familiar feeling rushed into their faces the moment they walked in. It felt as if they had been separated from each other for a lifetime. In the Black Sand Castle, Xiao Yan did not stay for long. He found a guest room and left after he had recovered his strength. He rushed towards the Xiao clan with all his might. Yunluo Academy. On the third day after Xiao Yan left, the Yunluo Academy held a grand ceremony. In the outer court of the academy, the leaders of all the major powers and capital of chaos attended the ceremony. On the Yunluo Academy's side, not only Elder Xiao and Su Ziyang had appeared. The Qi Bai elders had also appeared, and after everyone had settled down, the holy metaphor from the heavens also appeared in the minds of all the leaders in the star field at the perfect time. It announced the result of the 4 academies competition this time. The number 1 disciple of the Yunluo Academy. After learning about this result, all the experts of Capital of Chaos were stunned. They had never thought that this small academy, which they looked down upon, would actually achieve such a shocking result in the 4 academies competition. Within a day, the name of the Yunluo Academy had spread across the entire star domain. The divine message did not tell them about the final battle of the 4 academies competition, and naturally, no one knew about Yuv Mu. With this ceremony, the Yunluo Academy had finally sent out a signal to the outside world once again. This was the true strength of the 4 great academies of the star field. Xiao Yan naturally didn't know about what had happened in the Yunluo Academy. After nearly half a month of traveling, Xiao Yan finally came out of the star-severing mountain range and entered the prefecture. With the help of the transportation array in each prefecture, his speed increased by a few points. The prefecture that was adjacent to the Taiching Mansion was called Pingyang Palace. Although it was on the same level as the Taiching Mansion, the latter seemed more like a small prefecture that guarded the Taiching Mansion. Whether it was the level of prosperity or the resources in the prefecture, Yuan was far inferior to the Taiching Mansion. A transportation array was sent over from the Pingyang Palace. When Xiao Yan opened his eyes once again, his body had already appeared in a grand hall. In the center of the hall, there were dozens of armored soldiers patrolling. The aura that they unconsciously emitted caused no one in the hall to dare cause trouble. Xiao Yan had seen the magnificent work of the Xiao clan before, so he was not surprised by the scene in front of him. He slowly walked out of the hall in a line. When he raised his head, he saw countless pavilions and pavilions. Each pavilion was built from the ground, and it was a majestic sight that fully displayed the unparalleled abilities of the Xiao clan. Xiao Yan didn't have the slightest appreciation for these magnificent buildings. He immediately rushed towards the transportation array in the center of the city. When he first arrived in Yuanyi City, he was led by Xiao Hao and Xiao Ling to the place where the Great Elder was located. But now, it was obvious that he didn't have the ability to do so. In this unknown city, Xiao Yan ran for a long time. After asking a lot of people, he finally arrived at the square in the center of the city. There were hundreds of transportation array on the square. The crowd was dense and bustling, causing Xiao Yan to be startled. This was a huge amount of money. In the face of so many transportation array, Xiao Yan was stunned for a moment. He stood in the same spot, not knowing where to go. Who was the transportation array that was sent to the Xiao city? Xiao Yan? Just as Xiao Yan was in a daze, a clear voice suddenly sounded behind him. It was a voice filled with doubt. Xiao Yan turned his head and saw a pretty girl in a red outfit standing with her hands behind her back. Her big eyes were blinking as she looked at him. 2 inches you are. Xiao Ling? Xiao Yan thought quickly and remembered who the pretty woman in red in front of him was. He said softly, "You still remember." Xiao Ling's beautiful eyes narrowed into slits when she heard this. She revealed her canine teeth and nodded with a smile. Back then, when he and Xiao Hao went to Yuanyi City to pick up Xiao Yan, the latter was merely a monarch spirit level. Now, in just 2 to 3 years, he had actually reached the monarch emperor. "You are really amazing. You have helped Yunluo Academy obtain the #1 position in the 4 academies competition." Xiao Ling looked at the man in black in front of her and gently shook her long hair. She looked at the man in black in her eyes. There was a hint of astonishment in her eyes. It was a competition that even her big brother Xiao Yi found difficult. This man from the lower realm, Xiao Yan, was able to shine brightly in the 4 academies competition. "You all know about the 4 academies competition?" Xiao Yan asked in surprise when he came back to his senses. He thought that only the 4 academies knew about the 4 academies competition, but he didn't expect that the Xiao clan in the distance would receive the news. Of course, the 4 academies competition is a grand event in the star field. The result will be announced to all the major powers in the star field in the form of star domain guardians. A few days ago, Grandpa received the message. Your name should have spread to the ears of all the leaders of the major powers these days. Xiao Ling covered her mouth and smiled. Her beautiful eyes blinked. She clearly remembered that when she heard the sage from the heavens, the great elder, who had always been in shock, sighed repeatedly. Big brother Xiao Yi was silent for a few days and did not take a single step out of the room. "Oh right, who are the fighting monarch that came from fighting Qi continent?" Xiao Yan took a deep breath and impatiently asked. His eyes sparkled with excitement. His calm heart was beating rapidly at this moment, as if he had failed to live up to his expectations. "There are 2 of them. One is called Lei Ying, and the other is called Yan Jin. When you left the Xiao clan, your grandfather gave the order to have the people of the Xiao clan stay in the new sovereign domain. When they saw the people from the fighting Qi continent, bring them here. A few months ago, these 2 people were brought to the Xiao city after advancing from the fighting Qi continent. Lei Ying, Yan Jin." Hearing this, although Xiao Yan's face was filled with joy, he couldn't help but feel some regret in his heart. Initially, he thought that Xiao would advance as well, and even Yao Lao might come as well. What a pity. After the 2 of them came, Grandfather immediately saw that the 2 of them were not the descendants of the Xiao clan. He did not ask much and only sent someone to tell them a lot about the big world. Including the cultivation method, both of them had very stubborn tempers. They weren't hypocritical at all. If it wasn't for Grandpa's instructions, I reckon they would have been beaten up by the people of their clan. Xiao Ling giggled and turned around to leave. Xiao Yan also quickly followed. Of course, these 2 are the top experts in the fighting Qi continent. They won't be able to take it if they come here. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and shook his head without saying anything. He had experienced the lowest level of things in the past. After coming to the great world, soon, he became familiar with this place, and his disposition also accepted the fact that he was at the bottom of the hierarchy. As for Yan Jin and Lei Ying, they were used to being in high positions in the fighting Qi continent. They couldn't accept the fact that they had become the weakest existences in the great world. It was understandable. After hearing your name, the 2 of them couldn't wait to see you. Xiao Ling led Xiao Yan to a place where there were fewer people. If she had been nice to Xiao Yan because of curiosity the first time she saw him, it would have been because of her recognition of Xiao Yan's strength. The four academies competition had completely proved Xiao Yan's strength. There was no doubt about it. Two old friends, long time no see. I also miss you. Xiao Yan smiled. His mind also began to ponder. At that time, he could ask the two of them if they were willing to join the Yunluo Academy. Given his current status in the academy, it was sufficient for them to have resources that far exceeded ordinary people in the initial stage of cultivation. If they were unwilling, he could only respect the wishes of the two of them. He followed Xiao Ling to an empty corner. The latter flipped her hand and took out a teleportation bead. The bead shattered and Xiao Yan and Xiao Ling disappeared from where they stood at the same time. Xiao City, the capital of Taiching Mansion, was also the base camp of Xiao clan. This place was unlike the other cities in Taiching Mansion. The city walls extended continuously, like a giant dragon crawling for thousands of miles, surrounding Xiao City. Xiao City was divided into the inner and outer city. The outer city could be used for outsiders to tour and stop. In the inner city, only the core disciples of Xiao clan, or the disciples of the side branches that were summoned by the elders of Xiao clan could enter. Otherwise, it was equivalent to treason, and the crime couldn't be forgiven. Swoosh! In a large hall in the inner city of the Xiao clan, a white light flashed. Xiao Yan and Xiao Ling appeared in the main hall, and immediately attracted the attention of the Xiao clan's iron guards stationed in the main hall. Miss! Along with the sound of iron armor colliding, a burly and cold man strode over and slightly cupped his hands towards Xiao Ling. The man was wearing a black armor with purple light circulating on it. Clearly, it was not an ordinary item. This is. Without waiting for Xiao Ling to speak, the man's cold eyes looked towards Xiao Yan. There was a trace of vigilance on his face. This is the destiny of the Great Elder. Xiao Yan, who we core disciples pay attention to when we go to different cities. I met him in Zhengyang City. I was ordered by the Great Elder to bring him here. Xiao Ling didn't dare to show any disrespect to the Xiao clan's iron guards and spoke in a soft voice. The man took a closer look at Xiao Yan when he heard this. The latter shivered slightly. He could clearly feel a strong qi from the former's body. This qi was not something that the soldiers in star-severing mountain range could compare with. It was the qi of an expert who had experienced life and death. Let him in. Nodding his head, the man waved his hand. The fully alert Xiao clan's iron guards immediately retreated in an orderly manner like a black torrent, leaving behind a passageway that could only accommodate two people. Thank you. Xiao Ling smiled sweetly and left with Xiao Yan. The man silently watched the two of them leave, staring at Xiao Yan's back. He mumbled to himself, Xiao Yan. What a familiar name. A few days ago, young Master Xiao Yi mentioned it in front of us. Following Xiao Ling, Xiao Yan quickly entered a luxurious courtyard. Along the way, Xiao Yan finally witnessed the strength of the Xiao clan. On the wide road, it was almost like 5 steps per person, 10 steps per person. Each and every one of the iron guards of the Xiao clan wore black profound armor and had a calm expression on their faces. Their auras were long and powerful. Their strength was profound. According to Xiao Ling's words, this place was close to the city of Xiao City. Even if it was a core disciple. As for Yan Jin and Lei Ying, they had entered this place complacently under the special instructions of the Great Elder. Creak. Xiao Yan pushed open the door and stepped inside. He immediately saw 2 middle-aged men strolling around in the courtyard. One of them was wearing a red robe and his hair was also scarlet red. The other was wearing a golden robe and had a determined expression. When they heard the door open, the two of them looked towards the door. For a moment, their eyes met. Xiao Yan? The middle-aged man in the golden robe was the first to regain his senses. He shouted out in surprise, and he didn't seem to have the bearing of someone who could shake the heavens and earth in the fighting Qi continent. You have finally come, kid. The middle-aged man in the red robe was stunned for a moment, and then he cried out in pleasant surprise. Because of his excitement, even his beard and hair were trembling. Long time no see, I really miss you. Xiao Yan also laughed out loud. With a flash, he had already arrived beside the two of them. Meeting an old friend from fighting Qi continent once again made him incomparably excited. If his father and Zhu Kun knew about this, they would probably be very happy as well. Your strength is already so strong? Seeing Xiao Yan's previous speed, the red-robed Yan Jin's eyelids twitched. He exclaimed in shock. Xiao Yan had only arrived a dozen years earlier than them, but the strength he displayed was many times stronger than theirs. Haha, today, we will be drunk. Xiao Yan laughed and didn't say anything more about this matter. He patted the shoulders of the two passionately and said, "By the way, Xiao Yan, there's something I want to tell you." After the initial excitement, Lei Ying's face suddenly darkened. He gritted his teeth and said. When Yan Jin heard this, his expression also changed, but he still sighed helplessly. "What's wrong?" Sighing, "Could it be that another crisis that none of you can withstand has appeared in Fighting Qi Continent?" Xiao Yan saw this and smiled as he joked. "No." Lei Ying smiled bitterly and took a deep breath. Originally, Xiao was also promoted to Fighting Monarch this time. Xiao, that little girl also advanced to Fighting Monarch. Why didn't she come? That's right. How is teacher? Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel delighted when he heard that. He then asked curiously, "She is here. Xiao came with us, but..." In that mysterious space, Xiao was wrapped by a cloud of purple gas. Then, she suddenly disappeared. Yan Jin took over the conversation and said bitterly,